Okay, next step. Let's say you actually get them on the phone. Okay, so we built up the rapport, we get a chance, we get an opportunity to actually get them on the phone. Before you get them on the phone, you better have individual, like one-page sales sheets, kind of for, not just for yourself, but for each school. You want to know what you need to know about the coach on that sheet. You want to know what you're going to study at the university, what programs they have that are interesting to you, and what programs have accolades, and maybe how you see yourself fitting in with their team, and what you like about their offense or their defense, or what it is that's unique about that school or that coach or the program that makes you an ideal that makes it an ideal fit for you. And then on the flip side, what makes you an ideal fit for that coach, the program, or the university, and or all three. That'd be the trifecta. So that's the thing, is you got to be prepared to speak to your strengths, your weaknesses. Tell me about like the biggest event you've ever been to. Tell me about, the biggest adversity you've ever been through. Tell me about a time where you were at a sporting event and you had an obstacle that you had to overcome and how you overcame it. Or maybe tell me about a time that you failed and you didn't overcome that in the short term. Tell me about, they might even ask about, you might talk about family, you might talk about your circle of friends, you might talk about your, not just what you're interested in studying, but where that will take you in the future, and your hopes and dreams and aspirations. Some of those coaches may want to know more about, where you live. Tell me something unique about where you're from. Tell me something that you like about where the school is. And if the school's not close, be prepared to answer the question, like, why do we think that you'll stay here? Because just like taking a job, when people interview for jobs, generally speaking, a lot of them, unless they're the very, 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 very top job, they will only hire from somebody who's already relocated to the area. Why? Because they don't know if the person's going to stay or like the area really until they get there. So it's a risk for them to think, if you're calling on a school, so to speak, and you are from New York, and that school's in Arizona, well, they have a good reason to be wondering, well, is this person going to stay? Or let's say you're in Washington and you're looking at a school in Florida. Okay, these are the extremes, obviously, but there's a good reason why people consistently recruit from a particular area, is that they're comfortable with it. They've seen that, the numbers play out, people stay from this area. Or is there somebody here from your area, or from a travel team you're on, or somebody that you knew or that you saw or that you met? Or is there a family connection here? Do your parents have friends that live here, or something else like that? If there is none of those, and there's no connections, the coach probably or possibly could be a little uneasy. So you want to try to think of, is there a connection in that area of that school? And again, put this all on, put it on an index card if you want to, if you're old school and you want to write it down. You can print it out and so that you're prepared. If if you get a coach on the phone, you want to be prepared. You don't want to be rattled and sit there and be like, that's not gonna present the best you for them to evaluate. And then be prepared with video. You should have video to back up, like, oh, well, do you have a whole game I can look at? It's just easier just to post it on YouTube, honestly. And then that way you're just sending a link. So a whole game, and hopefully it's a good one against somebody significant, okay? Unfortunately, this is where high school athletics can sometimes not be very useful. And what do I mean by that? Well, if your high school doesn't really play anybody, or you didn't have a great game against a team that has a Division I or more than one Division I player on their team, or they do, but you didn't play against them personally, well, unfortunately, that sticks you in a situation where they're looking at film that's almost kind of a little bit irrelevant, because you're not going to play against that low level in college if you're looking to be at the high level. So that's where the travel is critical. And to be on a travel team, not just that plays against people who are playing Division I, but preferably at some tournaments where you're going to be able to be possibly in front of some of these people. Now, if you're a senior It's not over, okay? But you're getting late in the game here, but don't panic. But at the same time, if you have to get in front of some of these coaches and play against these other people, it's going to be probably pretty late, stages. So you're going to want to know how many schools you're legitimately looking at, and the ones that will legitimately look at you that you might have a feel for, or a look and a fit possibly, so that when it comes time to apply to schools, you can apply to the appropriate schools at that point if you haven't already had an offer. Now, the other piece to it is, I always tell people, when you're looking at other schools, you have to be honest and aware of the facts that are staring you in the face, okay? So colleges, if you're looking at a college that doesn't have anybody on the team in your position that looks like you, that plays like you, that has your size or your speed or your tangibles or intangibles, if that's not present, they may not have an awareness of the value that you would add, because they don't recognize that because it's not represented on their team. Now, most of the time, that's the situation. I mean, most of the time, if you don't see somebody who looks like you, who plays like you, has your style that fits into their offense or defense, and nobody from your area, they're probably not looking for it, they're not recruiting from there, and they're not going to be receptive to whatever you have. Now, you can try to present it to them, that's fine, but it might be a little bit foolish, which is okay, but it might be a little foolish, and I wouldn't want to put all my eggs in that basket if you're really, really trying to get recruited by that school. So the other thing too is, like, be prepared with, what's your GPA? How many AP classes have you taken? Do you know your class rank? Although it is not necessarily really what they're looking for as far as stuff. You better know what your SAT and your ACT scores are. Have you taken it more than once? Do you plan to take it again? Okay, if you've already taken it, unless you got a perfect score on either, you better have I plan to take it again. Be also prepared to answer the question, okay, when? If you just said you plan to take it again, but you don't have a date or a time, that's like somebody that's basically making a wish, not stating a goal with a plan to follow it up. So be prepared. Don't be casual about your conversation with coaches, not on the first date, so to speak. You better make sure you're prepared and you present the best you forward, not like a fake you, but be prepared with all the information. Because if you don't have that information, and if you leave that coach waiting long, or you look like a person that's being very casual about this whole recruiting process, when there's money involved, like, you may have just written yourself off. So make sure, again, this goes back to the whole tracking thing too. Make sure you have one computer spreadsheet. Get on your computer, have a spreadsheet that you enter information into. I want to know the time of the call, or the email. I want to know what you said. I want to know, how you left the conversation. Was there a call to action on your part? Was there a call to action on their part? When are you supposed to follow up? When did you say you were going to follow up? When did they ask you to follow up? Was there any information that they're looking for that they still need from you? All these things are so important that you make sure that you have it listed. There are some people who are like, oh yeah, I just got off the phone with the coach. It was awesome, wicked. Yeah, they're totally pumped. They're excited about having me down to their camp. Okay, that's great and everything, but at the same time, they may have said that to 150 other people. Now, the specifics of what they said and what they had for a call to action so that you can follow up on it are tremendously important, because life happens and we forget about things, and not having a little highlight reel or little tiny highlights that you can put up on social media, that's fun. There are some people that come from a scarcity mindset and they're nervous about posting that stuff. I mean, if you get good enough, other people are going to study you anyway. So, but the most important thing when you're trying to get recruited by a coach is that they have readily available information that they can look at to evaluate you by. And if that's not there, and they don't have a way to really assess who you are, how you play, or how much progress you've made, you put yourself in a bit of a tiff as far as how you can actually get recruited, because they can't really evaluate you.